All right, so hi. Today starts Hanukkah. You may be wondering, why is a Southern Baptist children's pastor wanting to talk to you about Hanukkah? Well, there's some background that you need to know. Hanukkah is the Jewish word for dedication. Now, Hanukkah also can be spelled Chanukah. When broken apart, the Chana means they rested, and the Ka has a numerical value of 25. Now, who are the they? The they are the Maccabees. And on the 25th day of Kislev, they rested from winning their battle to rededicate the temple. Kislev may not sound like a month that you're very familiar with, but stay with me. We'll learn what it is in a little bit. Today, Hanukkah is an 8-day celebration of dedication of the temple, also referred to as the Festival of Lights. Hanukkah generally begins between November 28th to December 26th. So here are the dates for the last couple of years, and this year it starts today, December the 10th. It fluctuates because the Jewish calendar is based on the lunar cycle of the moon instead of the Gregorian calendar that we use. The move away from the lunar calendar began with Julius Caesar, who adopted the 360-day 12-month calendar from Cleopatra. In fact, this allowed for an easier way to establish a consistent first day of the year, and he even named the month of July after himself. Now, Hanukkah is celebrated with traditional foods, and who doesn't like to eat? You're looking at potato latkes. They are oil-fried potato and onion cakes. Now, I could do without the onion part. And then the other one are what we would call jelly-filled donuts, but they're sofkinyots, fried jelly-filled donuts. They are divine. In fact, I want to show you what they look like from my recent trip to Israel. The stores are full of these, and there's all kinds of varieties, and they are wonderful. And those little syringes that you look at, you can actually squirt the jelly filled or the cream filling into the donuts yourself. Awesome fun. So, great food in Hanukkah. But children also like to play a game with a dreidel. Now, dreh means to turn or to spin. The dreidel has 4 sides with 1 letter on each side. Each letter is an acronym for Nes Gadol Hayasham. This translates to a great miracle happened there. There being the temple during the time of the Maccabees. We're going to talk about them more in just a little bit. Now, songs are also sung and gifts are given. The gift giving has some of its origin in giving of Hanukkah gelt, or money. So kids may receive chocolate-covered coins. Now, this enabled the poor to have money to purchase candles for lighting of the menorah for the 8 days of Hanukkah. Other sources claim that this was because after the Maccabees won their Jewish freedom, they could mint their own coins. But each of the 8 nights of Hanukkah, a candle on the menorah is lit. The Hanukkah menorah has 9 arms, which is 2 more than the instructions that were given to Moses in Exodus 25:31 through 39. Why don't you go read those? That would be an awesome thing to do today. Now, you can know that the Jewish people currently celebrate Hanukkah, but do you want to know why? How did all of this just start? Many of you, like me, like superheroes, and I want to know how they got their powers, right? So, what's their origin? What drives them to do what they do? Well, here's a few superheroes that you're probably familiar with and their origin stories. But we're going to talk about something more important than superheroes, although they're a lot of fun, and I enjoy them a lot. We're going to talk about the origin of Hanukkah, or the origin of the Jewish people. Who was the first Jew? Well, Jew is also a Hebrew, is also an Israelite. So those 3 words can be interchanged. And the short answer is Abraham was the first Jew. God called Abraham out as the first Jew. Jew does not appear in the Bible until 2 Kings 16:6 or 25:25 as a shortened name for Judah. But that's not limited to just the one tribe, but the entire group of Jews. They were first called Hebrews in Genesis 14:13. A man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, that's the father of the 12 tribes. Those are your patriarchs. Now, the Israelites settled in Egypt in the region of Goshen, and they acquired property there and were fruitful and increased greatly in number. But around 430 years passed, and then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing to, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to the people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land. a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. So now the Israelites are going to be freed from their Egyptian slave captors, and we see the miracle of the Red Sea. So the day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying there dead on the shore. And when they saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, they feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. So God then gave Moses some requirements and some things to establish when they would be establishing their tabernacle, or the tent of the meeting, where God would dwell with them. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering from me, from everyone whose heart prompts him to give." See, God wants a joyful giver. "Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them." That's what tabernacle means, to dwell with. "Make this tabernacle and all furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you." The tabernacle had to be portable as the children of Israel are moving through on their way to the promised land, that path that took them 40 years to arrive to. He said, "Make a lampstand of pure gold, hammer out its base, shaft, and make its flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms of one piece with them. 6 branches are to extend from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Then make it 7 lampstands and set them up so that they will light the space in front of it. A talent of pure gold is to be used for the lampstand and all the accessories." So the original menorah was designed for use in the tabernacle in the wilderness on the journey to the promised land. And once the Israelites had taken possession, though, of the promised land and built the temple, it was used there. According to the law of Moses, the menorah was to be lit nightly and cleaned daily. And it was fueled by pure olive oil to fuel the light. "Command the Israelites to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may be kept burning." In the tent of the meeting, outside the curtain that shields the Ark of the Covenant law, Aaron and his sons are to keep the lamps burning before the Lord evening till morning. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the Israelites for the generations to come. So you see where the Jewish people were wanting to have the lights of the Festival of Lights for Hanukkah. But then after the time of the judges, then Israel wants a king, and King David is crowned. When all the elders of Israel had come to King David at Hebron, the king made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, that's David's son: "As for this temple that you're building, if you follow my decrees, observe my laws, and keep all of my commands and obey them, I will fulfill through you the promise that I gave to David your father." So Solomon built the temple and completed it. But Solomon's sons divided the kingdom. His son Jeroboam led the 10 tribes in the northern kingdom called Israel. His son Rehoboam led the final 2 tribes in the southern kingdom called Judah. Those are the tribes of Benjamin and Judah. And Mark tells us that if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand, and that's exactly what happened to the children of Israel. They were exiled to Babylon. They had Babylonian captivity, and foreign powers were used to show God's judgment upon them for their idolatry, beginning with the Babylonians, followed then by the Persians. The Babylonians destroyed Solomon's temple in around 586 BC, and at the end of that time, Nebuchadnezzar raised his eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored, and then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. Nebuchadnezzar's son defied God, and the writing was on the wall. That very night, Belshazzar, the king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. Now, the king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den, and when Daniel was lifted from the lion's den, no wound was found on him, because he had trusted in God. Then King Darius wrote, "I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel." So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. But Daniel received a vision from God that you can read about in chapters 2 and chapter 7. But in summary, Daniel said, "After I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever, yes, forever and ever." So Alexander the Great conquers the known world around 323 BC, establishing the Greek Empire and the Greek culture. The Greek language is what most of the New Testament is written in. So when you think of a leopard, what comes to mind? probably something fast and speed. And that's what happened. Alexander conquered the known world by the age of 33. And upon his death, he divided his kingdom among his 4 generals. Now, Daniel's message from Gabriel was this. While I was still in prayer, Gabriel, the man I had seen in my earlier vision, came to me in swift flight about the time of the evening sacrifice. He instructed me to say, Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7, and in the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering. At the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed is poured out on him. So the Jews eventually are allowed to return home, and under Ezra and Nehemiah, the second temple is built. And this is the temple that Jesus would have visited. And we now find ourselves in the time between the testaments, between the Old and the New, where God is silent for about 400 years. And that's where the Maccabees take place. The miracle of Hanukkah takes place during this time frame when the Maccabees rededicate the temple, and they keep the oil burning with no oil there at all, not enough to last 8 days. But it lasts for 8 days. And this dedication of the temple was known as the Feast of Dedication in Jesus' time. Now, I recommend watching this video that you can find on What's in the Bible. We're not going to be able to show it to you in its entirety now, but I recommend that you look it up and watch that. It's a great 2-minute video.
Hanukkah.
But let's talk about why this is important for us as Southern Baptists, as evangelical Christians. Jesus was a Jew. So, being a Jew, he was taught to follow the Jewish law and traditions. Joseph and Mary taught him that. The Lord had given Moses 7 Jewish feasts that they should celebrate each year, as described in Leviticus 23. They are Atonement, Tabernacle, Trumpet, Passover, Pentecost, Unleavened Bread, and First Fruits. Now, some of them have other names, but you notice that dedication or Hanukkah is not on that list. Now, Jesus would have followed the 7 feasts, but Hanukkah? Well, here's what we can deduce from that. When the time came for the purification rites required by the law of Moses, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. When Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. So, Joseph and Mary are following the law of Moses. They're following the Jewish law, so they would have been teaching Jesus to do the same. So every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. And when it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, this is coming from John, where Jesus is an adult during his ministry. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. But when the Jewish festival of Tabernacles was near, however, after his brothers had left for the festival, he also, not publicly, but in secret, went. So that shows you that Jesus was going to the Jewish feast, the Jewish festivals, the Jewish traditions. And then came the festival of dedication at Jerusalem. And it was winter, and Jesus was in the temple courts walking in Solomon's colonnade. Now, Hanukkah, the festival of lights, Jesus is the light of the world. Jews see Hanukkah as a time to celebrate how God provided light in the temple for 8 nights during the time of the Maccabees. But we and Jews both can remember that, but how much more important should we remember and celebrate the rededication to the one true light, the light of the world? Jesus is that light of the world. John 8:12 tells us when Jesus spoke to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Merry Christmas. Okay, so in summary, to connect all the dots, just to make sure, we see that Jesus' parents, being devout Jews, would have had him follow all the customs, traditions, the festivals, the feast. Moses was given those 7 feasts by God that they should follow. And then we see that Jesus attended there in John 10, 22, and 23, the festival of dedication at Jerusalem. Now, the Maccabees and the original celebration of Hanukkah would have been before Jesus was physically born on the earth. So there we see the connection that Jesus would have attended this festival because he followed the other Jewish traditions and festivals and feast. So here we have biblical reference showing that Jesus was at the festival of dedication, which was not in the original 7 festivals of feast, but it is showing him in the festival of dedication there at Jerusalem. So that's how we can tie together Hanukkah, Jesus, Christmas, in Christianity.